So I read your comments and I've talked with you in conversation, and I hear teachers saying, my school or my principal does not want me to use consequences in my classroom. And although I think that that is setting you up for a struggle with classroom management, I do have an understanding of their perspective. So in today's video, I'm going to be sharing with you 4 reasons why I believe there are some principals who don't support teachers using consequences in their classrooms. Coming up next. Hey, teacher friends, Michelle Holiday here. I'm a behavior strategist, and I help teachers, schools, districts, and student-based organizations learn how to manage their students, their classrooms, and learning environments with less stress and less struggle. And in today's video, I'm talking about what are some of the reasons why your principal or school may not want you to use consequences in your classroom. Now, this does not mean that I agree with them, but I do believe that having an understanding of the why can help you to open up some of the dialogue on allowing you to use specific or agreed upon consequences in your classroom. So let's start with reason number one. Reason number one, they fear an escalation of behavior problems. Some principals worry that the consequences that their teachers are using can escalate the situation rather than calm them down. And they fear that the students may react negatively, creating bigger challenges, especially with our more difficult or defiant students. Let's face it, some teachers are giving consequences based on emotions rather than strategy, which often leads to poor decisions and power control conflicts. This is why the consequences that you use as a teacher should be geared to deter, teach, and connect rather than for revenge or punishment. Reason number two, a lot of principals are concerned about negative perception. As a principal, as an administrator, I've been one myself. We are very mindful of how parents and the community view discipline, and strict or specific consequences that may seem punitive or harsh, which can then lead to complaints and pressures from parents. And you know, some parents, they like to show up in the school and raise all kinds of stuff. Some of them want to go to the press. And so when they disagree with the approach, it can become very difficult. Often as administrators, they have to explain and sometimes even convince the parents regarding your actions and your use of consequences in the classroom. And if you're implementing consequences without a strategy, without structure, and without some level of objectiveness, this can be a really hard sell. And so it makes it really challenging for the principal. And sometimes they're like, it's not even worth all the drama. And so they're just like, stop using consequences altogether, which can leave you with a major struggle on your hands and an imbalance when it comes to your classroom management system. Reason number three, there are a number of schools and principals who have adopted and are focused on restorative practices. And many of them prioritize restorative justice over the traditional consequences. This leads them to believe that consequences don't address the root causes of the behavior issues, whereas restorative methods aim to transform behavior for the long term. And yes, not all consequences address the root cause, but if you are strategic, some of the consequences can actually help address the root cause. And that's a lot of what I teach in my workshops. But also, there's times where you just need a stopgap while you're working on finding or addressing the root cause, because at the end of the day, you still have to teach in your classroom. Now, overall, I am not against all restorative practices. I use and have used some myself, but I don't believe that you can use them all by itself. I think a combination of both really produces the best practices based on your students and based on your school. Essentially, I don't think they should throw out the baby with the bathwater, or that they should throw out all of the traditional consequences and replace them with all newer practices. I think that's a really big mistake when it comes to being effective with your classroom management system. And reason number four, often principals have a desire to keep their suspension rates low. Schools are often under pressure to reduce suspensions and keep students in the classroom. I mean, after all, that is where the learning happens. Principals may worry that consequences will lead to an increase of in-office referrals, impacting their overall suspension or discipline data, which can then lead to issues with school funding and actually even issues with their jobs. So while they may believe consequences can be a useful tool for maintaining classroom order, principals have to often balance discipline with the overall school climate, with student well-being, with public perception and with the funding and with keeping their job. And here's the reason why I made this video. By understanding their concerns, as a teacher who is facing a hesitant or resistant administrator, you actually can work together to create a balanced approach that supports both structure and student growth. But it does start with an understanding of both sides, open dialogue between the teacher and the principal, and this is key to finding solutions for everybody. Like I said before, I personally, as a teacher, have had to go to my principal when they're like, we're not doing this. And I'm like, okay, well, can we do this? And this is my reason why. And if we can't do that, what is your replacement? Like all of that comes into this open dialogue I'm talking about. Because for me, I wanted my students to learn, but we were facing so many behavior challenges that I needed help. And me sitting around complaining and fuming about it wasn't working. So that's when I had to say, okay, let me get help from those who are here to help. Do you agree or disagree with my reasons? Let me know in the comments below. There are more videos about consequences to come, and I will see you in the next video.